Good evening again, everybody. I'm going to read the final chapter of A New Hope, Star Wars Episode 4, Chapter 13. A cheering, gleeful throng of technicians, mechanics, and other inhabitants of the Alliance headquarters swarmed around each fighter as it touched down and taxied into the temple hangar. Several of the other surviving pilots had already vacated their ships and were waiting to greet Luke. On the opposite side of the fighter, the crowd was far smaller and more restrained. It consisted of a couple of technicians and one tall humanoid droid who watched worriedly as the humans mounted the scorched fighter and lifted a badly burned metal hulk from its back. "Oh my, R2," 3PO pleaded, bending close to the carbonite robot. "Can you hear me? Say something." His unwinking gaze turned to one of the techs. "You can repair him, can't you?" "We'll do our best." The man studied the vaporized metal and dangling components. "He's taken a terrible beating." "You must repair him." Turning toward Luke. "Sir, if any of my circuits or muscles would help, I would gladly donate them." They moved slowly away, oblivious to the noise and excitement around them. Between robots and the humans who repaired them, there existed a very special relationship. Each partook a little of the other, and sometimes the dividing line between man and machine were more blurred than many would admit. The center of the carnival atmosphere was formed by three figures who battled to see who could compliment the others the most. When it came to the congratulatory backslapping, however, Chewbacca won by default. There was laughter as the Wookiee looked embarrassed at having nearly flattened Luke in his eagerness to greet him. "I knew you'd come back," Luke was shouting. "I just knew it. I wouldn't have been nothing but dust if you hadn't sailed me like that, huh?" Solo had lost none of its smug self-assurance. "Well, I couldn't very well let a flying farm boy go up against that station all by himself. Besides, I was beginning to realize what could happen. I felt terrible about it, Luke, leaving you to maybe take all the credit and get all the reward." As they laughed, a lithe figure, robes flowing, rushed up to Luke in a very unsenatorial fashion. "You did it, Luke, you did it," Leia was shouting. She fell into his arms and hugged him as he spun her around. Then they moved to Solo and repeated the embrace. Expectantly, the Corellian was not quite as embarrassed. Suddenly awed by the adulation of the crowd, Luke turned away. He gave the tired fighter a look of approval, then found his gaze traveling upward up to the ceiling high overhead. For a second, he thought he heard something faintly like a gratified sigh, a relaxing muscles a crazy old man had once performed in moments of pleasure. Of course, it was probably the intruding hot wind of a steaming jungle world, but Luke smiled anyway at what he thought he saw up there. There were many rooms in the vast expanse of the temple which had been converted for modern service by technicians of the Alliance. Even in a desperate need, however, there was something too clean and classically beautiful about the ruins of the ancient throne room for the architects to modify. They had left it as it was, save for scouring it clear of creeping jungle growth and debris. For the first time in thousands of years, that spacious chamber was full. Hundreds of rebel troops and technicians stood assembled on the old stone floor, gathered together for one last time before dispersing to new posts and distant homes. For the first time ever, the massed ranks of pressed uniforms and polished semi-armor stood arrayed together in a fitting show of Alliance might. The banners of the many worlds which had lent support to the rebellion fluttered in the gentle breeze formed inside. At the far end of a long open aisle stood a vision gowned in a formal white, barred with Chalcedony waves, Leia Organa's signet of office. Several figures appeared at the far end of the aisle. One, massive in her suit, showed signs of running her for cover, but was urged on down the open road by his companion. It took several minutes for Luke, Han, and Chewie and 3PO to cover the distance to the other end. They stopped before Leia and Luke recognized General Dodonna among the other dignitaries seated nearby. There was a pause, and the gleaming familiar R2 unit joined the group, moving to stand next to a thoroughly awestruck 3PO. Chewbacca shuffled nervously, giving every indication of wishing he were someplace else. Solo silenced him as Leia rose and came forward. At the same time, banners tilted in unison, and all those gathered in the great hall turned to face the dais. She placed something heavy and golden around Solo's neck, then Chewbacca's, having to strain to do so, and finally around Luke's. Then she made a signal to the crowd, and the rigid discipline dissolved as every man, woman, and mechanical present were permitted to give full vent to their feelings. As he stood awash in the cheers and shouts, Luke found that his mind was neither on his possible future with the Alliance nor on the chance of traveling adventurously with Han Solo or Chewbacca. Instead, unlikely as Solo had claimed it might be, he found his full attention occupied by the radiant Leia Organa. She noticed his unabashed stare, but this time she only smiled. And that is the end of A New Hope. Hope you enjoyed the reading of the book. Have a great day.